You're supposed to wait for backup. Scylla's bronze pupils contracted as she watched the human male rappel down the sheer cliff face without safety protocols. No harness redundancy. No atmospheric suit. The deadly Cheyenne Death Canyon yawned beneath him like a metal-eating maw, its toxic winds strong enough to dissolve more than bone. This is why your species has a 30% mortality rate in combat scenarios. She pressed her palm against the Academy's observation deck, her auburn hair catching the harsh, artificial sunlight. 3 months at Yorktown Strategic Academy, and she still couldn't comprehend human recklessness. Luna stepped beside her, arms crossed. That's just Jasper being Jasper. The other human female, Hazel, snorted, "Remember orientation week." He jumped off the barracks roof to test Earth-normal gravity. Scylla's internal temperature regulators fluctuated, an involuntary response she'd been experiencing around her human squadmates. The males of her species planned every action with mathematical precision. The females calculated risk-to-benefit ratios before breathing. But humans treated death like a casual acquaintance. Jasper hit the canyon floor and immediately started sprinting toward the mock enemy fortification. Alone, the exercise parameters clearly stated 4-person infiltration teams. "He's going to get himself killed," Scylla whispered. Luna's lips curved upward. "Probably. But watch what happens next." The training simulation's crimson warning lights bathed the canyon in hellish illumination. Scylla's enhanced hearing picked up the whir of automated defense turrets activating. Standard protocol dictated a synchronized approach from 4 vectors, overwhelming enemy sensors through coordinated timing. Instead, Jasper zigzagged across open ground like a madman. Energy blasts scorched the rocky terrain around him, each impact releasing clouds of superheated debris. Any rational being would seek cover, reassess, call for support. Jasper leaped over a plasma crater and kept running. "Your friend appears to have a death wish," Scylla muttered. Hazel's dark eyes sparkled with something that looked dangerously like admiration. "He's improvising. Watch how he moves." Scylla focused her optical enhancers on the human male. His movement pattern made no mathematical sense. Random direction changes, unpredictable timing, complete disregard for optimal positioning. Every tactical manual in the known galaxy would classify this as suicidal behavior. Yet somehow, the defensive grid couldn't target him effectively. The automated systems fired where he had been, not where he was going, because even they couldn't predict his next move. Luna leaned against the observation rail. "Humans don't think like other species. We don't calculate optimal solutions." "Then how do you survive?" Scylla asked. "We adapt faster than the universe can kill us." A chill ran down Scylla's elongated spine. She'd studied human military history during her cultural orientation courses. The species' tactical doctrine seemed built on controlled chaos. They called it fog of war, and somehow thrived in conditions that would paralyze more logical minds. Jasper reached the fortification's perimeter. Instead of following standard infiltration protocols, he grabbed a loose boulder and hurled it at the main gate. The impact triggered every proximity sensor simultaneously. Alarms shrieked across the canyon. Defense turrets swiveled wildly, trying to target multiple phantom threats. In the confusion, Jasper vaulted over a secondary wall section that had been momentarily unguarded. "Brilliant," Luna breathed. Scylla's temperature regulators spiked again. She found herself leaning forward, her pulse quickening in a way that had nothing to do with the training exercise. The human male moved through the fortification like liquid mercury, flowing around obstacles with an instinct that defied analysis. When he encountered locked doors, he didn't hack the security systems or find alternate routes. He kicked them down. When automated sentries blocked his path, he didn't engage them tactically. He threw furniture at their sensors and sprinted past while they recalibrated. It was chaos. It was unpredictable. It was terrifyingly effective. Scylla realized her hands were gripping the observation rail hard enough to leave indentations in the metal. Exercise complete, the Academy's central computer announced. Mission objective achieved in 14 minutes, 37 seconds. New Academy record. Luna whooped with delight. Hazel pumped her fist in the air. Other cadets throughout the observation deck stared in stunned silence. Scylla felt something shifting in her chest, like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. The canyon's training platforms began retracting. Jasper emerged from the fortification, sweat-soaked and grinning, completely oblivious to the fact that he'd just shattered every established tactical doctrine. "Come on," Luna said, grabbing Scylla's arm. "Let's go congratulate the madman." They descended to the canyon floor via the Academy's rapid transit tubes. The metallic taste of ozone and scorched rock filled Scylla's respiratory filters. Her homeworld's atmosphere was carefully regulated, predictable. This place smelled like violence and possibility. Jasper was checking his gear when they approached, running his hands through dark hair that stuck up at impossible angles. "Not bad for a suicide run," Hazel said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Thanks for the vote of confidence," he replied, his voice carrying that peculiar human trait of sarcasm mixed with genuine warmth. Scylla found herself staring at the intersection where sweat had traced paths through the dust on his neck. Her species didn't perspire. They regulated temperature through controlled breathing and metabolic adjustment. But humans leaked salt water when stressed, like their bodies were constantly preparing for the possibility of death. It was disgusting. It was fascinating. That was unexpected, she managed. Jasper looked at her directly, and she felt another temperature spike. His eyes were the color of Earth's oceans, which she'd seen in Academy databases but never experienced firsthand. Humans evolved on a water world. That explained their comfort with fluid, unpredictable environments. "You thought I'd fail," he said. It wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact. Statistical probability suggested a 78% chance of mission failure using your approach. He grinned. "I like those odds." Luna laughed. "Scylla doesn't understand that humans are basically walking chaos engines." Chaos engines. The term resonated through Scylla's consciousness like a struck bell. Her people had spent millennia perfecting order, predictability, controlled outcomes. They'd achieved near-perfect social stability by eliminating variables. But variables were exactly what made humans so dangerous. The four of them walked toward the Academy's main complex as automated systems reset the canyon for the next exercise. The building rose from the desert like a crystalline mountain, its bioadaptive walls shifting color to match the changing light. "So what's the next simulation?" Jasper asked. Luna consulted her datapad. Zero-gravity combat scenarios. Boarding actions against hostile vessels. Scylla felt her stomach tighten. Space combat was her specialty. Morthans had evolved in asteroid mining colonies, making them naturally gifted in three-dimensional tactical thinking. She'd scored in the 97th percentile on all zero-gravity assessments. But she'd seen what humans could do when standard rules didn't apply. The Academy's corridors hummed with activity. Cadets from 17 different species moved through the halls, their various atmospheric requirements creating a complex mixture of filtered air and exotic gases. Scylla's enhanced olfactory sensors picked up traces of methane breathers, chlorine-adapted organisms, and the distinctive ozone scent that followed humans everywhere. Their squad's quarters occupied a corner suite in the residential section. The space had been configured for mixed-species habitation, with adjustable gravity plates, atmospheric controls, and furniture that could accommodate different physiologies. Scylla's sleeping alcove was positioned for optimal meditation alignment with her homeworld's magnetic field. Luna and Hazel shared a larger space with Earth-normal lighting and humidity. Jasper had claimed the smallest room, which contained nothing but basic sleeping facilities and a collection of physical books, actual paper volumes that seemed ancient and somehow precious. She'd found him reading them sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep. The sight of him surrounded by paper pages, absorbing knowledge through purely visual processing, created strange sensations in her neural pathways. "I need to review tomorrow's mission parameters," she announced, retreating to her alcove. The holographic display materialized as she settled onto her meditation platform. Tomorrow's exercise would take place aboard a decommissioned battle cruiser in high orbit. Standard boarding action simulation, with their squad playing the role of defenders against automated assault units. Textbook scenario, predictable enemy behavior. Optimal positioning could be calculated in advance. She spent the next 3 hours developing tactical models, running probability simulations, identifying the most efficient defensive positions. By the time she finished, she had a comprehensive battle plan that would maximize their chances of mission success. Through the thin walls, she could hear her squadmates talking in the common area. Luna's voice carried the musical quality typical of humans, rising and falling with emotional inflection that her people found difficult to interpret. Hazel spoke in shorter bursts, her words precise but warming when she laughed. And Jasper's voice had a rougher texture, like stone worn smooth by flowing water. When he spoke, her temperature regulators responded involuntarily. This was becoming a problem. More than emotional attachments were carefully managed, regulated by social protocols and biochemical supplements. Uncontrolled attraction led to instability, poor decision-making, compromised performance. But human proximity seemed to override her regulatory systems entirely. She activated her meditation routine, attempting to restore biochemical balance through controlled breathing exercises. The familiar patterns usually brought clarity, but tonight her mind kept drifting to images of Jasper moving through the canyon like controlled lightning. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on her personal communicator. The holographic display showed her Tyria's elongated features, bronze eyes reflecting the permanent twilight of their homeworld. "Scylla, my child, I trust your studies progress well." "Yes, Tyria. The human tactical methods are." Illuminating, Tyria's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Humans are dangerous, Scylla. Their unpredictability has destabilized entire sectors. Do not allow their chaos to corrupt your thinking. I understand their methods are unorthodox." Unorthodox. They have the highest combat mortality rate of any spacefaring species. They die because they cannot control their impulses. The conversation continued for several more minutes, filled with subtle warnings about human influence and reminders of more than superiority. When it ended, Scylla felt emptier than before. She emerged from her alcove to find the common area quiet. Luna and Hazel had retired to their quarters. Only Jasper remained, sitting at the central table with one of his ancient books. He looked up when she entered. "Couldn't sleep. My meditation cycle was interrupted." She approached the table, curious despite herself. "What are you reading?" He held up the volume, Military History, Battle of Thermopylae. She recognized the reference from cultural databases, an ancient Earth conflict where vastly outnumbered human forces held off a massive invasion through tactical positioning and sacrifice. 300 against thousands, she said. 300 against 200,000, he corrected. They knew they were going to die. They did it anyway. Why? Jasper closed the book, his fingers tracing the worn cover. Because sometimes dying for the right reason is more important than living for the wrong one. The statement sent electrical impulses racing along her neural pathways. More than philosophy, emphasized survival above all else. Individual sacrifice for abstract principles was considered a mental disorder. Your species embraces death in ways mine cannot comprehend, not embraces, accepts. Death is the one thing that makes life meaningful. He stood, moving to the observation window that showed the star field beyond the Academy's atmospheric bubble. The sight of him, silhouetted against infinite space, created another unwanted temperature fluctuation. "Tomorrow's exercise will be different," she said, joining him at the window. "Zero-gravity combat follows predictable patterns. My tactical analysis shows optimal defensive positions." Jasper turned toward her, and she realized how close they were standing. Her enhanced senses picked up the complex chemical signatures humans constantly emitted: pheromones, metabolic byproducts, the lingering traces of whatever soap he used in the hygiene facilities. "You've calculated everything," he said. "Yes. What if the calculations are wrong? They won't be. I've run 17 different probability models. What if something happens that you haven't modeled?" The question struck her like a physical blow. More than planning accounted for all variables, all possibilities, all contingencies. Scenarios that couldn't be predicted didn't occur. But humans thrived on the unpredictable. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" He was looking directly into her eyes, and she felt her carefully maintained emotional regulations collapsing like a demolished building. Heat spread through her limbs, her respiratory rate increased, and her thought processes scattered in directions she couldn't control. This was what humans did. They introduced chaos into ordered systems. They made the impossible happen through sheer refusal to acknowledge limitations. They made her feel things she wasn't designed to feel. "I should rest," she said quickly, backing away from the window. "Yeah," he replied, but his eyes followed her retreat. "Big day tomorrow." She fled to her alcove, sealing the privacy barriers behind her. But even with environmental controls at maximum efficiency, she couldn't regulate the sensations coursing through her nervous system. She was falling apart. And the most terrifying part was that she didn't want it to stop. Morning arrived with the subtle shift in artificial lighting that marked the Academy's day cycle. Scylla had spent most of the night in restless semi-consciousness, her dreams filled with images of humans moving through impossible spaces, defying physics through pure stubborn will. The transport to the orbital facility departed precisely on schedule. Their squad occupied a section of the passenger compartment alongside other training groups, the mixed atmosphere creating a subtle haze that refracted the starlight streaming through the viewports. Hazel reviewed her equipment checklist with methodical precision. Luna studied tactical displays on her datapad, occasionally murmuring observations to herself. Jasper stared out at the approaching battle cruiser, seemingly lost in thought. Scylla tried to focus on her mission planning, but her attention kept drifting to the human male. Today, he wore standard combat gear that somehow looked different on his frame than regulation specifications suggested. The equipment seemed more alive, more dangerous. The decommissioned cruiser filled the viewports as they approached. 2 kilometers of scarred metal and battle damage, its weapon systems deactivated, but its interior maze still intact. Perfect for training exercises where cadets could experience realistic combat conditions without actual mortality risk. Though with humans involved, Scylla reflected, the line between training and actual danger became increasingly blurred. The docking procedures completed with mechanical precision. Their squad and 3 others would board the vessel and establish defensive positions, while automated assault units attempted to reach the bridge. Standard scenario, predictable parameters. Except nothing involving humans ever remained standard for long. They moved through the cruiser's corridors in tactical formation, Scylla's enhanced senses mapping the environment automatically. The ship's artificial gravity created a familiar sensation of weight and orientation, Her people excelled in these conditions. Bridge is 12 levels up. Section 7, Luna reported, consulting her navigation display. Optimal defensive positions are here, here, and here, Scylla indicated on her tactical projector, highlighting key choke points and overlapping fields of fire. Jasper studied the layout with a frown. What if they don't come that way? They will. Automated units follow logical pathways. I've analyzed the ship's structure. What if logic isn't the point? Before Scylla could respond, the exercise began. Warning lights bathed the corridors in amber illumination, and the distant sound of breaching charges echoed through the ship's superstructure. The assault units were aboard. Scylla's squad moved to their predetermined positions, each member covering assigned sectors according to her tactical analysis. The plan was elegant in its precision, interlocking fields of fire that would funnel attackers into kill zones while minimizing their own exposure. For exactly 7 minutes, everything proceeded according to prediction. Then Jasper disappeared. "Luna, where's Jasper?" Hazel's voice crackled over the comm system. "Thought he was covering Junction 4. Negative. Positions empty." Scylla felt panic beginning to override her tactical thinking. Humans weren't supposed to abandon defensive positions. They weren't supposed to go wandering off during combat scenarios. But they also weren't supposed to survive impossible odds, and they did that constantly. "Contact," Luna reported. "Multiple assault units approaching from Section 9. Scylla's tactical display showed the enemies moving exactly as predicted, following the most logical approach routes toward the bridge. Her plan was working perfectly. Except they were now one defender short. The first wave of assault units rounded the corner into Scylla's calculated kill zone. She opened fire with her training weapon, its harmless energy pulses registering hits on the automated targets. Hazel and Luna provided supporting fire from their flanking positions. The units fell back, regrouped, began probing for weaknesses in their defensive line. Everything was proceeding according to tactical doctrine. They were winning through superior positioning and coordinated fire. Then the lights went out. Emergency illumination activated, bathing everything in blood-red shadows. Scylla's enhanced vision adapted automatically, but the assault units were equipped with full-spectrum sensors. The tactical advantage had shifted dramatically. This wasn't part of the simulation parameters. "Luna, what's your status?" "Holding position. These things are moving differently now." Scylla checked her tactical display. The assault units had abandoned their predictable approach patterns and were now advancing through sections that should have been impossible to navigate. They were using maintenance shafts, emergency access ways, routes that didn't appear on standard ship schematics. How were they adapting so quickly? The answer came in the form of an explosion 3 levels below their position. Not a simulated training blast, but something that shook the entire ship structure. That wasn't supposed to happen. Her comm system crackled with Jasper's voice. "Sorry about the power grid. Had to improvise." "Where are you?" Hazel demanded. "Engineering section." "Found something interesting about these assault units." Another explosion, closer this time. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, creating momentary weightlessness that made Scylla's stomach lurch. "Jasper, what are you doing down there?" "Learning. These aren't standard training drones. Someone upgraded them with adaptive AI protocols." Scylla felt ice forming in her chest cavity. Adaptive AI meant the assault units could modify their behavior patterns in real time, learning from defender tactics and developing counter-strategies. Her carefully calculated defensive positions had just become death traps. "Fall back to secondary positions," she ordered over the comm. "No time," Luna replied. "They're already flanking us." The assault units emerged from access shafts and maintenance corridors that shouldn't have been accessible. They moved with fluid coordination that spoke of shared tactical intelligence. Surrounding the remaining defenders with mechanical precision. Scylla's training weapon was torn from her hands by a grappling appendage. Hazel cried out as another unit disabled her equipment with a focused electromagnetic pulse. Luna tried to retreat, but found her path blocked by 3 more machines. They were captured. Game over. Except the assault units didn't stop moving toward the bridge. The exercise continued without them, which should have been impossible. Training scenarios were designed to end when all defenders were neutralized, unless someone had changed the parameters. The ship shuddered again, and this time the artificial gravity failed completely. Scylla found herself floating in the crimson-lit corridor, her inner ear struggling to maintain orientation as the assault units continued their advance. Then, Jasper's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, transmitted from the engineering section with full override authority. Attention all units. New objective parameters in effect. Target has been relocated to Cargo Bay 7. Repeat, target has been relocated to Cargo Bay 7. The assault units stopped their advance toward the bridge and immediately changed direction, moving with renewed purpose toward the lower sections of the ship. "What's he doing?" Hazel whispered. "Something impossible," Scylla breathed. They followed the assault units through corridors that had become 3-dimensional mazes in zero gravity. Scylla's enhanced spatial reasoning helped her navigate, but she found herself admiring the effortless way humans adapted to weightless environments. Luna and Hazel moved like they'd been born in space, using subtle shifts in momentum that her people had to learn through extensive training. Cargo Bay 7 was the largest open space on the ship, a vast chamber designed for storing massive quantities of supplies or equipment. When they arrived, they found Jasper floating in the center of the bay, surrounded by dozens of assault units that had been deactivated and were now drifting like metallic debris. He'd taken them apart somehow, without weapons, using nothing but the ship's own systems and his inexplicable human intuition for chaos. "How?" Scylla asked, floating closer to where he hung suspended in the zero gravity. "When you can't predict them, make them predictable," he said. "The adaptive AI was learning from our defensive patterns, getting smarter with every encounter. So you gave it false information. I gave it what it expected to find. Then I changed the rules." He gestured toward the disabled assault units. Each one had been systematically shut down through methods that weren't in any tactical manual. Some had been disabled by electromagnetic feedback loops. Others had been confused by conflicting sensor data until their processing systems crashed. All of it accomplished through pure improvisation. You caused the power failures, the gravity disruptions. Scylla's voice trailed off as the implications hit her. Had to level the playing field. These things were designed to learn from standard tactics, so I used non-standard tactics. That's not tactics at all. That's chaos, Luna finished, grinning as she floated nearby. Chaos that had somehow transformed certain defeat into total victory. Scylla stared at the human male floating among the deactivated assault units, his hair drifting in the zero gravity like dark water, his eyes reflecting the emergency, lighting with an intensity that made her temperature regulators spike again. He hadn't followed any plan. He hadn't calculated optimal solutions. He'd simply adapted faster than the situation could kill him, exactly like Luna had said. And it had worked. The realization struck her like a meteor impact. Humans didn't survive despite their chaotic nature. They survived because of it. Exercise terminated, the ship's computer announced. Mission parameters exceeded. New Academy record established. They floated in the cargo bay's crimson twilight. 4 beings from different worlds brought together by the Academy's training programs. But Scylla felt something fundamental had changed in the space between heartbeats. She was looking at Jasper differently now. Not as a reckless human who would get himself killed through poor judgment, but as something far more dangerous. a chaos engine that could rewrite reality through pure refusal to accept limitations. The transport back to the academy proceeded in relative quiet, each squad member processing the day's events according to their species' psychological patterns. Hazel reviewed the tactical recordings, analyzing what had happened from multiple perspectives. Luna composed a report for their instructors, documenting Jasper's improvisational methods. Scylla simply stared out the viewport at the stars, her worldview rearranging itself like puzzle pieces, finding new configurations. Her entire civilization was built on the assumption that chaos led to destruction, that order and predictability were the highest virtues, that survival required careful planning and risk mitigation. But humans had proven that assumption wrong. They thrived in chaos. They created possibilities where none had existed. They turned disasters into victories through methods that couldn't be predicted or replicated. They were beautiful in their impossibility. The thought struck her with physical force. Beautiful. She'd never applied that concept to another species before. Beauty was efficiency, mathematical precision, elegant solutions to complex problems. But there was something undeniably beautiful about watching Jasper move through impossible spaces, defying every law of tactical doctrine through pure stubborn creativity. Back in their quarters, the celebration was subdued but genuine. Luna prepared a meal from their shared food supplies, combining human and more than dietary requirements in ways that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Another example of human adaptation, overriding logical limitations. They ate together at the central table, comparing experiences from the exercise and discussing techniques for future missions. But Scylla found herself watching Jasper more than participating in conversation. She noticed things she'd overlooked before. The way he listened to his teammates with complete attention, as if their words were the most important sounds in the universe. The slight scarring on his hands that spoke of physical work her people accomplished through automated systems. The unconscious confidence in his movements, like he expected the world to accommodate him rather than the reverse. He was nothing like the males of her species, nothing like anyone she'd ever encountered. He was utterly human, which meant he was utterly unpredictable. And she was falling in love with him. The realization hit her with such force that she knocked over her hydration container, spilling its contents across the table's surface. Sorry, she mumbled, reaching for cleaning materials. Jasper's hand touched hers as they both tried to clean up the spill. The contact sent electrical storms racing through her nervous system. His skin was warm, slightly rough from exposure to unfiltered atmospheric conditions. Her people rarely touched each other casually. Physical contact was reserved for specific ceremonial or reproductive contexts, but his touch felt like coming alive for the first time. Scylla, she looked up to find him studying her with those impossible ocean-colored eyes. Luna and Hazel had paused their conversation, sensing the shift in atmospheric tension. "I need to understand something," she said quietly. He didn't release her hand. "What's that? How do you live with so much uncertainty? How do you function when you can't predict outcomes?" His thumb traced across her knuckles, creating sensations she had no words for. "The same way you function in zero gravity, I guess. You trust that you'll figure it out as you go. That's not logical." "No, it's not, but it works. Sometimes it gets you killed. That's the trade-off." She stared into his eyes, seeing depths that her enhanced vision couldn't fully map. "How do you choose when to take those risks?" "You don't choose. You just follow what feels right. What if what feels right is wrong? Then you adapt, or you die trying." The conversation had created an intimacy that filled the entire common area. Luna and Hazel had gone quiet, recognizing something significant was happening between their squadmates. Scylla found herself leaning closer to Jasper, drawn by forces that had nothing to do with gravitational fields or magnetic attraction. He was chaos made flesh, everything her people feared and avoided, and she wanted to fall into that chaos like jumping off a cliff. "I think," she whispered, "that I'm beginning to understand." His eyes widened slightly. "Understand what?" "Why humans are so dangerous." She kissed him. It was the most illogical thing she'd ever done. Her people didn't engage in casual physical intimacy. They certainly didn't kiss beings from other species without extensive cultural preparation and biochemical compatibility testing. But logic had nothing to do with the way her temperature spiked when their lips met, or the way his arms came around her with protective strength, or the way the universe suddenly felt like it made perfect sense despite making no sense at all. When they broke apart, she felt fundamentally changed, like she'd been reconfigured at the molecular level. "Well," Luna said into the stunned silence, "that was definitely not in the mission parameters." Hazel grinned. "Sometimes the best things aren't." Jasper was still holding her, his eyes reflecting wonder and something deeper. "Are you sure about this?" "No," Scylla replied. "I'm not sure about anything anymore." "Good," he said. "That means you're learning to be human." And for the first time since arriving at the academy, Scylla thought that might not be such a terrible fate after all. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, predictable and eternal. But inside their small shared space, 4 beings from different worlds were creating something new, something that couldn't be calculated or predicted. Something beautiful in its impossibility. Something perfectly, chaotically human.